What's going on, family? So I'm here with the numbers guy, Aaron Clary.
Yes, the numbers guy.
And it was a great pleasure meeting this guy for the first time. I ran into him in Miami. Enjoyed his his YouTube video vacations. Just because I've been called an asshole many of times, and I don't think it's something I need to change. If the truth hurts your feelings, you need to check your feelings. But he's here. I want you to tell the people a little bit about yourself, and we'll get running.
Well, my name's Aaron Clary, and I started out in finance and banking, so that's where I got the numbers from. And then through necessity and a little bit of creativity and entrepreneurship, I ended up teaching ballroom dance classes. When I was 23, and did that for 4. But that put me on the path of obviously running into girls and observing female behavior, and like any other 23-year-old man, I wanted to get laid. And if you're wondering if it helps to be a ballroom dance instructor, yes.
Oh, definitely.
Yes, it absolutely does.
This is a little girl I'm trying to nail right now, but I don't do salsa. But go ahead.
You don't know how to salsa?
I don't know how to salsa. She's all into it.
All right, anyway, but yeah, it's so, and then just through even economic analysis and philosophy, because economics is the study of human behavior, ultimately, with numbers attached to it, I started wondering if you could take principles and theories of economics apply it to dating or women and demand and supply and even pricing and all that, and it turns out you surprisingly can.
And it's very valuable information.
Very insightful. And so that kind of, I had a blog going back to 2004, sort of, pre-bandwidth days to handle podcasts and YouTube. But then in parallel to my banking career, I was writing, and then I wrote a book, and then I was on radio a little bit, and then podcasting technology came along, so I do a pod, then YouTube, and made every successive jump. And now, gosh, what is it? 17 years later, we're here. Yeah, and it's kind of it's weird, but it's great.
And you're based in Canada, right?
No, I'm in South Dakota now. I was originally from Minneapolis. It's roughly the same. There's snow and polar bears.
But it always seems cold where you're at. Okay.
Yeah, it's always which is why I'm here in Vegas. Okay. But and so the last time I worked in banking was 2012, and ever since then I've been self-employed, either through books, monetization, advertising through different YouTube and all that. And then also I run a consultancy called Asshole Consulting,
right?
Which I
and
created.
That's where I know you from. But go ahead.
Right, and that was created in response because most of the books I wrote were finance based, so people would have questions specific to their situation. I was like, dude, I don't have time for this, and I'm like, well, people kind of know me as an asshole. This will be a polite way to say, well, no, to make them go away. So they stop asking. So I set up the website and everything else, and I'm like, so if someone commit, 1 out of 20 people are going to pay. There's no, but then people will politely be turned away, and they'll understand, I'll make some beer money. Well, it turned out like 70-75% of the people pay.
Exactly.
And then so it's been a weird journey, but that's what I do now. So content creator, author, professional asshole consultant.
Yeah, but I'm telling you right now, you are valuable in this space.
Thank you.
I mean, this is what I took from you. I said, here's a guy. He is a numbers guy, and he's actually putting realistic numbers and figures on dating, which is something men never do. And if they do, it's in hindsight. It's during the divorce. It's post-relationship, and you look and you say, look how much money I spent on this relationship. And I think the value that you give guys that have been through it, are in it, and are looking to get into it it's priceless. Because you're letting guys know what to expect so that they can make a more informed decision about exactly how expensive is it going to be to get the girl, maintain the girl, and potentially lose the girl. You get what I'm saying? So that you can do a cost analysis that you would in, say, any other major decision that men make. And I think in those areas, we're a little bit better at making those decisions when it comes to business, when it comes to property, when it comes to investments, even when it comes to, say, like fitness. Like, how much money am I willing to spend?
Calories in, calories out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Every other area of life, we seem to be pretty damn good with math. And if we're not, we at least know that we need to consult with someone that is.
Mhm.
But why is it that when it comes to women, for some reason, we throw that out the window completely and act strictly on emotions?
Because they're horny.
Right.
That's the
yeah.
answer.
But that's what made me fall in love with you and your content is that not only are you the guy that's able to take emotion out of it for a second, right? Look at it objectively, right? But yet you are not as much of an asshole as you present yourself. You actually are very, very compassionate and considerate when it comes to the opposite gender and their dilemma, right?
Right, and on both sides of the equation, because when it comes to men, and we've gone over this before, and they're like, discriminated against, been lied to by multiple, and become this, become that, no, we don't want you, and so is that,
they're victims, but not victims of us men in general.
No,
Establishment.
but it's men and women are two sides of the same coin, and it really looks like we're at a war, and we are.
But we shouldn't be.
We shouldn't be, because guess what? It's this generation, and we're together whether you like it or not. And if you take the time to look at the condition women are in, it's a mess.
And it's because of a lack of male cohesion. It's because we're not working with the women while the women are in the state that they're in. They just don't see it. They look at us as the culprits. Right. But it's actually the lack of the male involvement in an individual woman's life that gets her where she's at.
Yes, but the genesis of that has been basically propaganda telling women, specifically feminism, but other forms of ideology, advertising, right.
And taking the father. I think it's a combination of those inputs as well as the subtraction of the father. So you subtract the father and you input this rhetoric, right, and then you get where we are now.
Right, and there's a thing I wrote called the reality principle, and it's basically, if you make your decisions based on lies that feel good, you're going to have misery. You're going to be fail.
Miserable, yeah.
But if you make your decisions based on reality, or the closest approximation you can get to reality, your decisions are going to be more effective. And as time has gone on, I've gotten older, I've started feeling more and more sympathy and just outright pity for girls, because my generation of women, they are spinster.us. They are divorced, they hate men, or they are at least adversarial. They're delusional. They think that, I'm 46.
Exactly.
The females that are in my generation, they're 46, they're fat, and they're still thinking like it's 1999 and Prince is singing or something like that. And so, and then you look at the prescription drug rates, you look at depression rates, you look at what, choose your metric.
You see the little dogs in the stroller with the baby gap clothes on it. It's like, that's not a child. That's a dog.
And I don't know if you've seen
that's
this.
my baby. I'm a dog mom.
Right, yeah,
I'm
a fur mama. Yeah, right.
You give birth to the puppies.
So, and I don't know if you've seen this in Miami, because it's a younger town demographically speaking, but certainly in the Midwest, I've seen more and more instances of women 45 plus, probably in their 50s or 60s, dining by themselves.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like...
You don't see that in Miami, but I travel enough to have seen it.
Yeah, and I'm thinking like, okay, usually you can identify if they're on business. They'll have a...
Of course. They'll have the attire.
Yeah, they have the attire. They'll be carrying a briefcase or something. No, these are gals who are 50, overweight. They're not dressed like they went to an office or a presentation. And they're just sitting there with their wine by themselves. And
self-medicating.
Yeah, and that's women in 50, 55, 60, and they are the canaries in the coal mine.
And it's over.
And not only is it over, but I have a feeling an order of 10, magnitude of 10 times that amount of women are going to be going down that direction. So that your generation of women, I presume you're younger 30s or older 20s?
I'm in my 30s.
You're in your 30s? Okay, but, or let's just say Gen Z. I mean, let's start teenage to 20-something women. In 30 to 40 years, I bet half of those gals are just going to be sitting there by themselves.
Who's going to take care of them when they're elderly is what I want to know.
The government will. You and I will.
Because, hey, I took care of my grandfather in his last 10 years of his life, and I think to myself, if he didn't treat us so well, so these women that don't even have children or grandchildren to speak of, what's
right. They got a good career though. And they have
that puppy isn't going to take care of you.
The puppies, right?
The German Shepherd isn't going to take care of you.
Right, but that's the programming they received, and what's probably the worst part of it, where I feel the most sadness or pity for them, is they don't know why. Because they are so convinced they did everything right.
Well, they're so invested in the narrative they were given.
Right.
And I think one of the worst things about the current state of the female, regardless of age, is their inability to listen to men. Like, you don't, I'm sorry, you don't come off as an asshole. I'm not trying to question your branding, but you don't come off as an asshole.
Nice guy consulting doesn't sell.
No, I understand, I
yeah.
understand. But, you know, I see you as someone that's able to interact with women, no bullshit, be able to say, listen, this is your situation, whether you like it or not, this is the truth, I have absolutely no incentive to lie to you, what do you want to do? What do you want to do about it? And the earlier that a woman is ready to have that conversation, the earlier age that she's willing to have that conversation, right, is the more of a chance she has to correct the path. So I can relate to it in the sense of, I can't be too hard on these so-called feminists or these women, because I watched my aunt go through it. I remember being a little kid, overhearing the arguments between my aunt and my grandfather. And he was trying to tell her...
Her dad, then.
Right, her dad.
Okay.
He was trying to tell her, focus on finding a husband. She was saying, no, I'm going to get a scholarship, and I'm going to... And he said, no, don't go away to college. I want you going to a local college. No, I'm going away to college. I'm going to be a lawyer, and I'm going to pass the bar. And he was trying to basically say what we say in the manosphere: listen, men don't care about your career. Your career is not going to take care of you. It's not going to make you happy. It's not going to put security around you. He was trying to tell her these things, but obviously in a more traditional way. And she was just taking it as, times have changed. The women are da-da-da-da. And what she didn't realize is, baby, human nature has not changed.
Right.
The dynamic...
Couple million years of evolution that would argue otherwise.
The dynamic of men to women has not changed. You are downplaying the value of family. You're downplaying the value of having children of your own. And sad to say, my aunt is in her 50s. She's unhappy. She can't seem to get married. She can't lock down a husband, and for obvious reasons. And I just sit there and think to myself, wow, all that time I was overhearing these conversations, these arguments, and that argument drove a stake between my aunt and my grandfather for many years, because she just refused to hear his point of view. She refused to listen to him, and now look where we are.
Right.
And he was saying it out of love, and he was saying it out of experience. He was saying it out of wisdom.
Yeah, he didn't dislike his daughter,
exactly.
right? Yeah,
and she took it as, you just want to see me barefoot in the kitchen, and you want me oppressed.
I don't want him barefoot in the kitchen. I want him in high heels in the kitchen.
Because me and her have spoken about it. But, I'm almost 40, so we've spoken about it over the decades, and she still chooses to look at it as he didn't have value for women. He didn't value women the way he valued sons. He didn't value daughters the way he valued sons, and that's not what it is, because he was very hard on us as men as to be providers and to be very efficient and to be able to change your own oil, to understand the plumbing, to
wire something.
Right.
Yeah.
And he wasn't saying that you have to do all of these things. He was saying you need to know how to do these things, right? If you don't know how to do these things, you can be taken advantage of by another man. It's a difference between not having the time to do something and not having the knowledge to do something. If you don't have the knowledge, someone can tell you, oh, you need this part, that part, and that part, and next thing you know, they're running up the bill, and you don't need any of that. You just need a little $10 part down at Home Depot. We'll fix that. So all he was saying is that you need to be self-efficient in these areas. If you want to be a strong head of a household, you have to be in charge of these things, because these are not the concerns of women, right? These are the concerns of the man, the father, and then the woman needs to be concerned with the housekeeping. And I kind of heard her argument at the time. Yeah, times are changing and it's not the same. And I almost could believe that bullshit, because you're young.
You were getting it when you were in school too.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you're young and you're impressionable.
Right.
And then as I got older, I saw more and more that was bullshit. And there's no way that the system has changed. The system has stayed the same way. The man is the protector and the provider. The woman is the nurturer and bears the children. That chemistry is God-given. There's a reason why it works, right?
Right,
So-
and it's biology. I don't know if people have looked down at their junk recently, but one goes into something that doesn't work the other way around, and somebody has this thing called boobs.
And they feed the children.
And they feed the children. Now, I don't know if God or nature's trying to tell us something, but they might be trying to tell us
And I
something.
mean, why do we think we're so much different than the animals? If you look at the animal kingdom,
No,
they're
we're
doing
the
just
same.
fine following the blueprint, right? So I say that all as to say, I hear so much feedback from the subs and the followers and the subscribers, basically to the note of women are bad, women are the problem, women are terrible, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, my aunt's not terrible. Okay? My other aunt isn't terrible. Okay, my grandmother wasn't terrible. Like just because a woman has become the victim of feminist ideology does not make her a bad person. So I agree with you in the sense of they are the victims. They've been bamboozled.
Well, but they've been bamboozled. But here's what you bring up is an interesting point, and I've wrestled with this as well. And maybe the answer is they're both. But when does a young boy or young girl become criminal? or become responsible. So let's say you're walking with your 4-year-old nephew or 4-year-old son, whatever, and he grabs a piece of bubble gum out of the gas station. You didn't see it. You walk up. You're like, hey, where'd you get that? Now, he probably doesn't understand ownership or property rights. And so you got to take him back. You don't beat him. You explain to him, look, that's not yours. You have to pay for it. And someday we'll explain money. Well, what if the kid's 12? Kid is 12.
He understands
He
ownership.
understands. Well, he should. And it's kind of the same paradox with women, where it's like, okay, rah-rah feminism as an 8-year-old girl. Boys are icky and girls are gross and that kind of thing. So there's that natural, was the Little Rascals, he-man, woman haters club or whatever. So that's kind of understandable. And then at about puberty, it's like, okay, do you really hate a guy?
Something's overriding it now.
And then all the way up, I'll even say, okay, I can understand, because I'm also starting to believe more and more humans are perfectly susceptible to brainwashing, that up to college, a woman can still naively believe that men bad, women good, or men competitor or adversary. But inevitably, some point in time, you have to have agency and responsibility, just like a 12-year-old should not steal a pack of bubble gum. And whereas, yes, they are a victim. Yes, they keep subscribing to the victimhood ideology. When I have a woman, let's say who's 25, and I don't need no man, and da-da-da, and I got my credit, and then I'm like, okay, now you are a victim. You're also guilty as hell. Yeah. Because now you've passed on some men that were probably good. You have, and you want to have children, but your behavior is hypocritical because you're not investing any time trying to find a quality husband to have kids. That you're going out in part like everyone that you have over on Fresh and Fit. And that's where I have to say, okay, in one hand, I feel sorry for you because you're right, ladies, your lives are over.
Yeah, you're gonna
It's
suffer.
over. I mean, hey, hope you enjoy that master's degree and the government check and hugs you
back. But that's when you're the asshole. That's when they tell you,
but the truth is truth, and it depends on what side of the truth you're on. If you're on the side of truth, you like the truth. I'm one of the greatest guys ever. Yep. Like, people give me guff. Like, I wrote a book called The Black Man's Guide Out of Poverty. White man, Hold it. It's the black man's guide out of poverty. Here's the truth. Why? Because I want you to get out of poverty. So people who are on the truth, they understand, oh, well, thanks a lot. That makes sense. Okay, I see that there and all that.
For me, I think the problem is we just have an abundance of these emotional, feminine traits that have gone awry. Yeah. Because we've been taken out of the balance, right? So there's so many guys.
Nothing to anchor them.
Right. So there's so many guys looking at things from a very, very feminine perspective, and they don't even realize it. And I think a lot of it comes to do with what they were raised by. What were you what was the standard you were raised by?
Me?
Right? No, not you.
Oh, just in general.
I'm just saying that, and I feel like maybe the black community has a little bit too much of that. We're leaning way too much to the side of a matriarchal setup,
raising, right?
Right, where that's how we tend to view the world, right? So we have all this victim mentality. Now, my grandfather obviously grew up in an extremely racist time. He died at 100 and he died at 95 years old, and he was born in like 1928.
Okay, he
actually worked on the George Washington Bridge. You know what I mean? So he came to this country with fucking nothing, right? Like $20-something he came to this country with. He went on to own several properties. He owned the first black-owned grocery store in Queens, New York. And his take on racism was so simple. He always told me growing up, life isn't fair. A black man has to work twice as hard to be considered half as good as a white man. That was the mentality that I grew up with. It wasn't pointing the finger. It wasn't, oh my God, white supremacy, I can't accomplish anything because I'm black. Racism is holding me down. No, it was just simply work so hard.
Yeah.
Prove yourself to the extent of you cannot even be denied at this point. And if you look at any so-called progress that blacks have made in this country, it hasn't been some type of handout because of what's fair. It's simply been they outperformed someone. They outperformed the standard in a particular area. That's how they got into sports.
Right.
They outperformed the standard.
Right.
Exactly. To the point where they said, you know what? Let's exploit these. Let's exploit them because they're outperforming. Now this is the problem. This is where other things come into play now. So the work is done, right? Or the talent is present. The work is done. The point is made. Where you're fucking up now is you're not applying business.
or capitalizing
Intelligence,
off of it.
exactly, right?
You're
You're not bringing in ownership now, right? So now you're not positioning yourself in a way that you're in control of this value that you're bringing to the table. So now you've crossed over into being ignored and discriminated against to being exploited.
right.
And that's where we are now, currently being exploited.
Right, and you can tie the two together because it's, again, the reality principle. Are you telling people the truth? And there's a lot of people lying to different groups of people, male, female, black, white, Hispanic, whatever, for various political, financial, power, marketing purposes. And this is where that asshole good guy dichotomy comes from, where it's like people are so steeped in lies, almost to a religious fervor, because that's all they got.
That's the reality.
That's their whatever, their politics, their environment, whatever. That if you come in and tell them the truth, like, hey, you're X, Y, and Z, and your life would be like,
Sounds alien.
well, not only alien, but you're antithetical to everything that gives them value. So now you're a bad person. Now you get called.
They don't
names.
want to believe you.
Right, and so, I've always said, don't have kids you can't afford. Don't commit no crimes. Don't major in stupid shit. Not just advice to black people, everybody, and you're probably going to be all right. The equivalent to telling women is, don't get fat. Be nice. Keep your hair long.